Test, 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 test. Test, 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 test. Test, test. All right, everybody, we will get started in about 10 minutes. We'll get started in about 10 minutes. We'll make another announcement as we're about 5 minutes out. Test, 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 test. All right, everybody, we're going to get started in about 4 minutes. In 4 minutes, so if all the candidates could start to make their way to their seats, if people could start to find seats, please feel free to move chairs around, spread them out, get them closer if you know that person, and make yourself comfortable. All right, everybody, welcome to the Boulder Chambers 2021 City Council Candidate Forum. My name is Andrea Menegel. I'm Director of Public Affairs at the Boulder Chamber. And it's great to see everybody out tonight. It's great to see the level of interest in the local election. And it really feels like opening day of the election season. So thank you for making it out here tonight. We're proud to bring this to you with all our partners, and to welcome you all and to say a little bit more is Chamber President and CEO John Tehr.
All right, I'm already knocking over the props, but I welcome you as well. So it has been a very tough year. We have some very challenging issues ahead of us as a community: housing issues, transportation policy, racial and social equity. And into that fold come what I would say are some just absolute lunatics. These are the people who have stepped forward to address these very challenging issues, and there are 10 of them who you will have the opportunity to meet tonight. And I will recognize them, all kidding aside, that this is a special time to come forward for our community. We know that it is the time of COVID. We don't know what's ahead of us, the uncertainties, all of the challenges that I mentioned. And yet these individuals have said, I want to step up, I want to serve my community. I think that I can help solve some important issues. And tonight we will have the first opportunity to hear from them about them, from themselves, as well as a sense of where they stand on some of the major issues before us. So I'm going to start, and I have a number of notes of appreciation, but I'm going to ask you all, this is their first opportunity to be before a live audience, to please give them a big round of applause for stepping forward for our community. So I also want to make sure to recognize the folks who are hosting us tonight, the Jewish Community Center, the JCC otherwise. They have dealt with some challenging conditions and have stepped forward to allow us to have this event. They are taking the most strict precautions to protect our safety and to accommodate this important community event. So if you all could thank our Jewish Community Center with their own another round of applause. Now, the Boulder Chamber is very proud to help support this event and bring it to you, also to our audience watching at home. I will note, though, that nothing that we do as the Boulder Chamber in support of our economy and our community happens without community partners. And this event is a great example of that. And so to put it forward, to make it happen, to make sure that you hear about the diversity of issues, and we ask our candidates to respond to them, are 8 great partners. And I'm going to list them here so you know who they are. It's Community Cycles, the Community Foundation of Boulder County, the Downtown Boulder Partnership, the Human Services Alliance of Boulder County, the Boulder Longmont Area Realtor Association, the Latino Chamber of Boulder County, and the Urban Land Institute of Colorado. I thank them so much for being partners with us in bringing this event to our community. And then just a couple of other quick notes of appreciation is to all of you. So you're all here in this venue. You've made the time commitment to be here. You are braving the COVID conditions because you care about our community. So we thank you for attending tonight and recognizing that the issues that will be discussed are not necessarily the ones in your head, but just know that we have brought a diversity of community leaders before us today to ask a diversity of questions. So thank you for listening tonight and thinking about, what questions do I want to ask the candidates when I have the opportunity? And then also to our audience at home. And I note that we are streaming this live, and we are going to tape this event so that it'll be available for a wider audience afterwards. So looking forward to making sure that this gets a broad circulation. So I'm about to say that I want to see these candidates start their electric bike engines, because we're getting ready to roll here. But there are a couple folks who I need to bring to stage who are going to guide us through this occasion. And the first one is a longtime partner, somebody who you know as the representative of the Boulder Chamber's advocacy positions, and he is our Director of Community Affairs, and that is Andre Menegel. And then I have the opportunity tonight to introduce another longtime partner, somebody who many of you know as a former Boulder City Council member, Jill Granow. She also then serves currently as the Community Relations Director for Congressman Joe Neguse. But I have the special privilege tonight of announcing that she has accepted a position as the interim Senior Director of Policy Programs for the Boulder Chamber. And so I welcome Jill Granow. And as such, I present to her her Boulder Chamber mask. Welcome, Jill. Thank you. And here you go. Take it away.
Oh, well. Thank you so much. To the 10 candidates, the lunatics in this room, we thank you for running. Truly, on behalf of your congressman, thank you for stepping up and running for office. And on behalf of the chamber, I look forward to working with you to build back better, because we have a long way to go. And so, yeah, moving just from one optimistic, forward-thinking J name to another, and excited to continue working with all of our community partners. With that, I'll turn it back to John, and we'll get started.
All right, thank you, Jill. Okay, the last word from me is about public safety. So all of us have worked very hard to make this a COVID-safe event. Our chamber staff will be wearing our masks throughout the event. We strongly encourage those in the audience to wear your masks as well. Of course, not while you're eating or drinking. That makes it very difficult. But I also want to acknowledge again the JCC that Andre has mentioned to me. They changed out their entire HVAC system to make sure that this is a safe, COVID-safe environment. So with that, I turn it over to a great partner, somebody who deserves amazing credit for pulling this event together, Andrea Menegel.
Thank you, John. So we're going to bring you a fun, dynamic event tonight. It's going to go quick. They're going to answer quick. We're going to know exactly what's on their mind. This is your first glimpse at all 10 candidates running for City Council. They came here today. They were just certified 2 days ago. One of them actually had a council meeting last night, so we couldn't do it yesterday. So here we are. And you have all 10 candidates, including one who is joining us from abroad, but we made it possible for Dan Williams to be here too. So we sent these folks 37 questions and said, we're going to grill you on all of these, or some of these, but, well, some of these, be prepared to answer all. You will hear from them tonight on COVID recovery, on housing, on human services, on land use, on economic issues, and on CU South. We'll keep it moving. It'll be fast. It'll be fun. Trust us on that one. Each candidate will have the same opening question, the same closing question, and they'll all have equal amount of questions asked by our community partners that submitted those questions. They will have 1 minute to answer every question. My friend Deborah Malden is right here in the front row, and Deborah will be holding a sign when you have 30 seconds left, when you have 10 seconds left, and when your time is up, we will ring this friendly sounding chime. Could you hear that in the back, Eric? All right. So the main point tonight, introduce them, scratch the surface, hear a little bit about who they are, learn who they are, and leave you wanting more. So go to the rest of the forums that happen for the next 2.5 months. Read what they put in the paper for the next 2.5 months on their social media. Learn about them, and don't forget to vote. After the program, you'll have time to meet them. They'll be here. We provided a handout with every bit of contact information we could possibly think of, other than their personal cell phone, although it might be on there. Feel free to contact them anytime. Tell them I sent you. And they have materials outside, or no, right there on the back table. We have food outside if you get hungry. We have drink. We will have videos of them on the Boulder Chamber website. Come back to our website to learn more. We'll have a ballot scorecard, and we really just appreciate you being here tonight. Because of COVID, we did a little different. They'll be up here speaking. We have Clorox wipes if you'd like to wipe down the mic at any point. Our partners will be asking questions from there. You have Clorox wipes to wipe down the mic at any point. And we also want to emphasize one last thing, and that is that in Boulder, there's a lot of different perspectives on a ton of different issues. And so the thing that we want to mark our event here tonight is just show the respect for these folks and for their willingness to run on behalf of this community. It doesn't matter if you agree or disagree with their ideas. We're here to hear them. We're here to learn who they are, and we're here to respect that freedom that they can put that out for the community. So we thank you for that. I'm about to start to introduce them all. And so we will introduce them in alphabetical order. They'll come right up here and sit in order, except for Dan, who we have set up right here. And they'll have 30, 60 seconds to introduce themselves. So, with that being said, are you ready to meet them? All right. All right, we'll start. First up, and they all get the same question. They got this question. They're prepped. They're ready to roll. Let's go for it. First up is Matt Benjamin. He's a parent, 20-plus year resident of Boulder, served on multiple working groups, led the Our Mayor, Our Choice initiative last year. Matt's going to come up. And Matt, besides being in love with Boulder, tell us why you're running for City Council.
Well, first off, great to see everybody here. A big thanks to the Chamber, all the partners, and certainly the JCC. My daughter actually goes here, so I appreciate all the precautions that everybody's doing to keep our sort of vulnerable and certainly our unvaccinated children under 12 safe in our community. So I'm Matt Benjamin, and I'm running for Boulder City Council. Again, lived 20 years here in Boulder, live with my wife and 2 kids in South Boulder, and what really drives me to want to help our community is a lesson I learned as a kid, which is to be a steward of my community and my environment. Well, what that really means is leaving it better off than we found it, or than I found it 20 years ago. And that really means making Boulder, or at least making it more inclusive, diverse, and a more welcoming community for more people to live, work, and play in our fantastic community. Now, my experience gives me a great opportunity to help lead us forward as COVID has exacerbated and in many ways introduced a bunch of new challenges to our community. It started when I ran in 2017 for City Council, and then got really bit by the bug of public service, and have now served on 2 community working groups, campaign finance, and others. And then I'm also really committed to working on improving our election systems. And in 2020, I got the opportunity to lead a ballot measure that gave you the right to elect our mayor using ranked choice voting. Again, I'm Matt Benjamin, and I'm running for Boulder City Council. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt. You can have a seat right here. All right, next up, in alphabetical order, we have Michael Christie. He's a parent of 2 children. He's a family law lawyer, volunteers with Community Mediation Services, Boulder Shelter for the Homeless, and he's on our Cannabis License Advisory Board for the City of Boulder. Michael?
Hi, my name is Michael Christie. I am a proud parent of 2 children who live in Boulder, and my beautiful wife, Andre, who is sitting back there. I am a family law lawyer by trade. I am a certified mediator and a certified collaborative law lawyer. I have deep roots in public service. I am a veteran of the Air Force. I was a JAG officer in the Air Force where I served time in Afghanistan right after 9/11. I was an intern at the White House during the Clinton administration. And as Andre currently said, I am a volunteer at the Boulder Shelter for the Homeless. I volunteer with Community Resolution and Mediation Services, and I am also appointed as a member of the Cannabis Licensing and Advisory Board. I am running for City Council because I believe that my personal and professional experience, particularly as a mediator, give me the skills necessary to bring people together who often have opposing viewpoints, help them work through difficult solutions, and come to reasonable conclusions and solutions to those problems. My name is Michael Christie, and I'm running for Boulder City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Next, we have Jacques DeCallo. Jacques was born and raised in Boulder, and I did not fact check this, but I think he's our only council candidate running that's Boulder native. Jacques, tell us more about yourself.
I'm Jacques DeCallo. Sorry about my clothing. Sorry about that. I just came from work. I work for Tesla, so sustainability is my main goal. I believe that Boulder should be running off solar. There's no reason we can't. We get 300 days of sunshine with battery capacity now. We could be off the grid. It's just working with Excel to divest and all that sort of stuff. Another reason I'm interested is because a lot of my friends who I grew up here with can't afford to live here. That's a huge issue that hits a deep chord for me. Another reason is that Colorado passed Regulation 86, which enacts gray water recycling. In Colorado, we are in the western part of the United States that's in a huge drought. We need to do everything we can to preserve water, to preserve the climate, to do anything we can to combat climate change. It's the biggest issue that's threatened my generation, the people younger than me, the people older than me. I think it's something that we can all come together on and make a change for the better. So, there's no reason Boulder can't be one of the most sustainable cities in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacques. Right on a minute exactly. That's perfect. Next up, we have Lauren Folkert. Lauren is an architect. She's the chair of the Design Advisory Board, and she's president-elect of the Colorado Green Building Guild. Lauren, besides being in love with Boulder, why are you running for City Council?
So, I'm Lauren Folkert, and as an architect, I make our built environment more beautiful and sustainable. While working within Boulder's strict regulatory environment, I help my clients tackle big problems in realistic ways, and I've been inspired by two issues in our community to run for City Council: the affordable housing crisis and our sustainability crisis. The last year has made clear the significant overlap in these two issues. 60% of our renters and 40% of our homeowners are cost burdened. 60% of our workforce commutes from outside of town. Transportation and the built environment are our largest sources of greenhouse emissions, and affordable and attainable housing is the key to addressing these issues in our community. And that's why it is my main goal in running for City Council. I've lived and worked in Boulder for the past 10 years, and I look forward to using the skills I've acquired as a Boulder architect to work with our community and implement creative solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. All right, next up, we have Steve Rosenblum. He's been a resident since 2017, has a 20-year career in finance and housing markets, and Steve is going to tell us the most compelling reason he's running for City Council.
Good afternoon, buenas tardes. My name is Steve Rosenblum. The reason I'm running is because I love Boulder. But real love isn't just saying I love you. Real love is an active process. Real love means doing the work. Real love means speaking and hearing hard truths. Real love takes compromise. Real love means taking responsibility, actually solving problems, and rising to challenges. We're all in a long-term relationship, and we want it to be successful. I believe we all want to live in a community that's safe, inclusive, a great place to raise a family, build a career, or start or run a business. I'm an economist and a mathematician and an expert in housing and government finance. For the past 20 years, I've invested in communities, analyzed government budgets, and created housing for the elderly, disabled, and the unhoused. On council, I'll use my unique skill set to find common ground and deliver the housing and infrastructure that Boulder needs to create opportunity, support our local businesses, protect our public spaces, and save our climate. So let's walk the talk together.
All right, thank you, Steve. Next up, we have Nicole Speer. She's a parent, a 16-year Boulder resident, manages the Brain Imaging Research Facility at the Institute of Cognitive Science at CU. That sounds very important, and Nicole is going to tell us why she's running for City Council.
Thank you for being here, for hosting us, and for keeping our local economy going during a pandemic. Your successes benefit all of us. My name is Nicole Speer. I manage a research facility at CU that sells neuroimaging data services to scientists and biotech companies across the Front Range. I'm also a PhD scientist, a mom, and an avid volunteer. As an employer, my recipe for success is to recruit and retain world-class staff whose capacity for innovation surpasses my own, and then I get out of their way. Unfortunately, my workers can no longer afford to live in Boulder, even with competitive wages. So now they live in neighboring cities, and I wonder how long it's going to be until they decide to work in them too. I'm running for Boulder City Council because my leadership and management skills can help us find solutions to the challenges holding our city back. Not just housing, but also homelessness, diversity, and our climate crisis. We're facing a lot, but as you've shown us over the past 18 months, with skilled leaders who empower exceptional people, anything is possible.
Thank you, Nicole. Excuse me. All right, next up is David Takahashi. David is a retired software engineer, a 30-year resident of Boulder, and a grandfather. He's going to come up and tell us, besides being in love with Boulder, why he's running for City Council.
Thank you all for showing up. I am David Takahashi. I lost a home to a wildfire. I know climate change. It took me 2 years to settle with the insurance company. I know homelessness. We had to decide whether to replace or rebuild, and in doing so, I learned all about land use. We ended up replacing the home, and we've done a deep energy retrofit, so I know about going carbon neutral. The floods of 2013 decimated my mountain neighborhood. I know about 1,000-year floods. Thank you so much. I had more to say, but I've run out of time.
Thank you, David. Next up, we have the only incumbent council member running in the election. He's a former real estate attorney and developer, and that would be Mark Wallach. Mark, you're up.
My name is Mark Wallach, and for the past 2 years, I've been a member of the Boulder City Council. I'm running to advance Boulder's interests in public safety, providing more affordable housing, and developing new programs to address that portion of our homeless population that is suffering from mental illness and drug addiction. I have tried to serve for the past 2 years as a substantive, critical thinking member of the council. If I am given the opportunity to serve again, I intend to do no less, and I hope that I will have the opportunity to do that. So thank you very much, and I'll end with, I've got to be the craziest person up here.
Thank you, Mark. All right, the next person I'm going to introduce is Dan Williams, and I really pray this works with the screen behind us. Dan's the father of 2 Boulder High graduates, a civil rights and commercial litigation attorney at a downtown Boulder law firm, and volunteers with numerous community organizations, including the ACLU of Colorado. So Dan, take it away. You got 1 minute to let us know why you're running for city council.
Hey everyone, I'm so glad to be able to be here via Zoom. I'm out of town, but it's great to be able to join you. I got my start in public policy in Washington, D.C., moved to Boulder about 15 years ago, raised my family here, work at a downtown Boulder law firm now. You know, I've seen Boulder get off track. Our wealth disparity is increasing, our population's stagnated. We're locking out future generations, and we're not meeting our racial equity goals. I'm running for city council to change that. I'm running for city council to make sure that our reality matches our rhetoric around being a progressive city. So how do we do that? When I'm faced with decisions on city council, I'm going to ask 3 questions for each decision. Does this decision make it easier or harder to live, work, and play in Boulder? Does this decision promote social justice and racial equity? And does this decision address the reality of the climate emergency? I'm Dan Williams, and I'm looking forward to your support for City Council.
Thank you, Dan. All right, and last up is Tara Weiner. Numerous city boards and working groups, currently on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. Tara's coming up here, and she's gonna let us know why she loves Boulder enough to run for city council.
Hi, I'm Tara. I am a mother. I have 3 daughters. I have 3 son-in-laws. I have a granddaughter and 1 on the way. Now that we got that taken care of, I can tell you about myself. After over 25 years of creating and running a successful business, I have an expertise in forming partnerships, collaborating with others, identifying unintended consequences, understanding complex problems, and most importantly, solving them. In fact, I love it and I'm great at it. 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to give back to my community when I was appointed to my first city working group. We were challenged by many of Chautauqua's parking and congestion problems, and we solved them. We started the free park-to-park shuttle, which is still operating today. Then more boards, more working groups, and now I'm serving on the Boulder Parks and Rec Advisory Board, where I proudly contributed to the Scott Carpenter pool remodel. And if you haven't visited yet, please go. It is awesome. So let me sum it up for you. Business experience, pragmatism, big picture, little picture, and that's it. Here I am. I'll talk to you.
Thank you, Tara. All right, everybody. That's the 2021 City Council candidates all right there. All right, so now let's go ahead and dive into some issues. From here, Jill's going to take it away.
Dan's on. Would you like him live? Dan, there's a request for you to be live. Dan is celebrating his 25th wedding anniversary in Switzerland right now. Well, okay, I love this. John, may I have this as a permanent fixture at the chamber? Thank you. Thank you all again for running. We have an outstanding slate of candidates, as you can see, and we would like to ask all of you all 37 questions, but we would be here all night. So we tried to think of a way to make it equitable and get to hear from all of you. And what we're going to do is I'm going to draw 2 names at a time out of the basket, and then call on one of our many community partners who have each submitted questions for you. And then you'll answer their question. We'll move on, and we'll do a few rounds of that and conclude. So we are going to get ready for our first 2. All right, this question is going to go to Lauren Folkert and Nicole Speer. And I'm going to call John Banas up. He's representing Downtown Boulder Partnership, the owner of Japango, one of our wonderful restaurants.
Just hit the ground running.
Please.
Y'all are off to a good start, so keep it up. Again, I'm John Banas with Downtown Boulder Partnership and Japango, and yeah, if I had to contend with those timed flashcards, I might not get through this. So, every business that opens successfully in Boulder provides a range of community benefits far and beyond the goods and services that they provide. Local businesses in particular are believed to keep up to 48% more in revenue for the community. Local ownership is also understood to contribute to safer and more welcoming business districts. Ironically, local independent businesses are often less equipped to navigate the city's costly and lengthy permitting process. In what ways will you support streamlining, simplifying, and in otherwise removing costs and risks from the permitting process to support all businesses, but specifically small business owners?
Thank you, John. That's a great question. Cost and risk and our current state of permitting is a huge challenge for businesses of all sizes throughout the city and, with my residential clients as well. On the short term, I think that we could do like we did during COVID. We can fast track certain kinds of projects and reduce barriers for projects that support community goals, or if the business community has specific recommendations for things that would help them make the changes that they need to make post-COVID, I think that that would be a great way for us to help them. In the long term, I think we really need to take a serious look at overhauling our building code. Right now, our new head of development services recently did this in his last position, and I think he's perfectly positioned to help us do this again. Thank you. Okay.
Next, we'll hear from Nicole Speer. Same question.
Thank you. I really appreciate this question, and this is a concern that I've heard from others as well. As somebody who took 6 months just to get a deck extension permit, I can only imagine what it is like from a business perspective. One thing I kind of want to shift this question just a little bit. I spent 5 years on the board of trustees at Bixby School, where I learned how to work on a governing board like our city council. And as the governing board for our city, council really shouldn't be weighing in quite at this level of detail on how to get things done. This is really an operational issue, as I see it. City's council's work is one level up, setting priorities for the city manager and empowering her work with her staff and to make measurable progress. So as a council member, the way that I would address this issue would be to advocate for prioritizing this issue with my fellow council members, set a concrete goal with the city manager on how to reach that goal with measurable outcomes that are timely, and then I'd really support the city manager to help her overcome obstacles at every step of the way to try to address this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole and Lauren. Okay, next up, Steve Rosenblum and Matt Benjamin. Okay, and we are going to have John stay and ask a second question from the partnership.
Sounds good. Locally, regionally, and nationally, there are many differing and often conflicting opinions about how to manage the impacts of homelessness and work towards solutions, what responsibilities the cities have, where to best invest resources, and what policies will have the greatest benefit to our community. COVID-19 has added additional challenges to what was already a difficult situation. How will you educate and inform yourself to best advance policy and resource decisions regarding the impacts of homelessness in Boulder?
Good news is I've already done the work. I spent the past 5 years researching our national homelessness issue and making a difference myself. I purchased a rundown, dilapidated building in Denver and partners with the Denver Office of Economic Development to create safe, affordable housing for formerly homeless people. So I understand the challenges that landlords face and the unhoused face to get into housing. So I've also spoken with many members of our community, including Greg Harms, CEO of our Boulder Shelter, Kurt Fernhaber, who runs Housing and Human Services. The number one lesson is that the only solution to homelessness is housing. So that's where we need to focus all of our resources. Boulder spends $23 million a year in Housing and Human Services, 8 times the amount per capita as our surrounding communities. Our other communities need to step up, and we need to make sure we're spending our funds as efficiently, as effectively as possible. And we need to plug the gaps in our social safety net, which right now we need to recognize we have a serious meth and opioid addiction problem, and we need to help reach those people.
All right, thank you, Steve. Matt Benjamin, same question.
So the conversation about our unhoused residents is perhaps maybe one of the greater challenges of our time. And it really challenges us to be empathetic, compassionate, and to put ourselves in the shoes of others that are vulnerable and less fortunate. And I encourage all of us to try to do that because emotions run high on this issue. There are issues of safety, and there's also issues of how do we take care of people through sometimes no fault of their own are in terrible positions in life, and how do we lift them up? I measure the greatness of our community not by how green our parks are, but by how well we take care of those that are most vulnerable in our community. And with regard specifically to what we can do to help our unhoused residents, we must look at sympathetic ways of creating greater services. We should be providing greater access to showers and hygiene. We should be thinking about where they can actually live rather than criminalizing the act of just being unhoused. We also have to absolutely focus on our mental health and our addiction services, and there are great examples of these like the STAR program in Denver, the Cahoots program in Eugene, and we have a suite of opportunities to try. The most important thing for us to do is not be afraid to fail in trying all things we can to help those that are most vulnerable in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, the Community Foundation is the next partner that's going to ask us questions, Tatiana Hernandez, and those are going to go to Dan Williams on our screen here and Mark Wallach.
Hello, beloved lunatics. May the odds be ever in your favor. It has been quite a year. What do you think are the biggest lessons we've learned from COVID from a city governance perspective? And what are your key strategies to prepare for future uncertainties?
So we'll start with Dan. Yep.
Okay, so I understand the question to be the biggest lessons we've learned from the COVID crisis with respect to city government. It's been a tough year, really a tough year and a half. One thing we've learned, we can take some of our public spaces and devote them to people instead of cars, and it makes us just a stronger city overall. So, I look at what happened between 9th and 11th Street, where businesses, I think, thought if we don't have car traffic in front of the business can't work. And we learned that's wrong. We've made thriving outdoor spaces, putting people first during the COVID crisis. And in the process, we've allowed our business community downtown to thrive. So, that's really one of the great, externalities of the COVID crisis, of one of the positive things that we've been able to learn. I think another thing we've learned, though, is we need to focus on equity with our public health solutions. So, we did not do a good job distributing vaccines equally among people of color and white people in Boulder. And I think as we look at round 3 of vaccines,
Dan,
this is an area we need to do a better job.
Thank you so much, Dan. Really appreciate it. All right. Councilman.
For me, the key lesson that we have learned is exactly how resilient this community is. In terms of governance, our city staff has worked under horrible conditions with diminished resources, and they have continued to provide services for everyone. I'm very proud of them and what they have done, and I think that, for me, is the great lesson of this horrible experience. We also have collaborated more closely with some of our partners, such as CU, Colorado Health, and others. And I think going forward, we're going to need to continue and deepen those levels of collaboration so that we can be prepared for the next issue like this, because as we all know, it will come. And we cannot avoid it. We can only be prepared for it. And I think we will be from the lessons that we have learned from COVID. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. All right, Tatiana's going to stay up for the next question. Do you guys like this format? Kind of quick? Yeah? All right, this is where you start making bets on who's going to be called up next. And it is David Takahashi and Michael Christie. Tatiana?
David, could you describe your decision-making process? What influences it? Is it data, more effective use of boards and commissions, the lived experience, yours of that of others? What specific approach do you have for making decisions and engaging others in that decision making?
The answer to that question is I believe that engaging the public in our decision-making process is the gold standard, and that we should, we have such a wonderful, deep, intelligent public here that we actually waste. And so the way I believe I would push local decision-making is to involve our wonderful public. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Michael.
So when I was a JAG in the United States Air Force, I had the opportunity to sit as a judge in a criminal case. And I was judging an airman who there was no question in my mind was guilty of the crime that he was charged. But I knew that I had to set aside my own personal biases and judge the case based on the facts and evidence and data that was presented. So that's how I would describe my decision-making process. As a trained mediator and certified collaborative law lawyer and a family law lawyer by trade, I know that there are two sides to every story. My hope is to bring that skill set to council and help bring people together after looking at all of the evidence and the data that supports an issue that we are faced with. I will not make decisions on the fly. And to answer the rest of your question, yes, I would say that my personal experiences in my life and the experiences of others are what helped me come to the conclusions that I come to. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there's only two left for this first round. So we have Tara and Jacques, Tara Weiner and Jacques Takalo, and we're going to have our very own Andrea Meningel ask a question on behalf of the chamber.
All right, thank you, Jill. So our question is, and it's funny, I have the program. I didn't even know we were at this part yet. There we go. It's about the economy. And what we want to know is, what are the vital components you see of Boulder's economic vitality, and what specific strategies would you support as a city council member to restore and maintain our vibrant economy? Do your strategies accommodate more job growth?
So Boulder's economy is based on a couple different things. CU honestly brings in a huge amount of money to the city. We are a college town, that's how we were started. The downtown area, commerce, you know, the retail business, that's another one. The tech industry is huge here. I think the tech companies should actually be paying more to be in Boulder with Google, Twitter, Microsoft being here. I think they should be paying their fair share. Thank you. And another thing that is kind of revolutionary on the forefront of technology right now is passive income based off cryptocurrency. Okay, thank you. So right now with cryptocurrency, you're able to mine crypto and create a passive income. Cities like Miami and San Francisco right now are putting in ordinances that are a city coin, and this city coin can be used to rebuild infrastructure, to hold community events, to just promote the city and create more income for the city. This can be done with solar crypto mining, so it's net zero and it just adds to our economy.
Thank you, Jacques. All right, Tara.
You know, as a small business owner and also a member of the chamber, I really appreciate this question. One thing, one of the most important things to me is that Boulder is a vibrant city, and it's exciting, and we need to keep it that way. So we need to really uphold our businesses and make sure we're taking care of them. I will say one of the great things about our economy is that we have places like Ball Aerospace and the university, you know, that just really gives us a lot of stability. The big problem, and I'm feeling really short right now. So short. The big problem that we have is when we have startups and creative new businesses, they don't really, you know, they don't have their employees can't really live here. They can't afford to live here. And, sometimes they just want to move out to Denver so they can get more employees. So there are definitely issues in that way. I will say when it comes to jobs, I'm never going to be that person that says we don't need any more jobs. I'm an economics major. Jobs are important to me. So I feel like if we have a jobs, house, labor imbalance, that we need to get more housing, not less jobs. I'm never going to say otherwise. As far as labor, we really need to put ourselves forward and find labor. We need to be creative with that.
Thank you, Tara. All right, next up, we are going back to our partners at the Urban Land Institute. Melissa McGinley will be reading the question on behalf of the Urban Land Institute. And we are going back to David Takahashi and Matt Benjamin. Melissa, take it away.
All right, David and Matt. The second phase of the Transit Village Area Plan, also known as TVAP2, stands ready to accommodate significant infill redevelopment that could accommodate a great deal of additional housing, all in a mixed-use environment next to a major transit station in the geographic center of the city. Do you feel that we should prioritize completing that effort and advance TVAP2? Why or why not?
I missed the question.
Sure. It's referring to TVAP2, the Transit Village Area Plan, which stands ready to accommodate significant infill redevelopment that will accommodate a great deal of additional housing, all in a mixed-use environment next to a major transit station in the geographic center of the city. So a perfect blend of everything. Do you feel we should prioritize completing that effort to advance TVAP2? Why or why not?
Okay, yeah, we're off to a good start with the phase 1. Phase 2 gives us the opportunity to think about doing development in Boulder that is carbon neutral. And by doing this, we actually make the living there less expensive and more affordable. And it also lowers the price of doing business, so we can start to attract affordable business into the infill. And yeah, I would say prioritize bringing in affordable housing at honoring the planet would be, I would support 100%. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, David. All right, Matt.
So I really appreciate the question because it really touches at a sense of how do we move the needle. We have a housing crisis, we have a climate crisis, and these things can't be done in linearity. We have to work and multitask, and if some things aren't quite finished, we got to start on the next project to make sure we reach our community goals. Something that I will absolutely apply to just about every issue we face is, does it help get us more climate resilient, and will it help us reach our equity goals? And so when we think of housing, business, mixed use at the geographic center of the community along a transit corridor, like you said, it checks all the boxes, not just for our goals in transportation and housing, but also for climate resiliency and for equity. These are exactly the types of things we should be doing, and we should look to do more of them in our community to provide greater opportunities for more people to live, work, and play in our community, so that we are also meeting our goals of being inclusive, diverse, and welcoming. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Matt. Next up, we have another question from Melissa, and it will go to Nicole Speer and Lauren Folkert.
Nicole, why don't you start this time?
Go ahead, Melissa.
Sure. How would you see the city supporting community values such as more affordable and attainable housing for people that work here, alternative travel modes, carbon emissions reduction, and promoting diversity, and achieving goals of the Boulder Valley Comp Plan through redevelopment sites such as Alpine Balsam, Diagonal Plaza, and elements of the East Arapahoe Subcommunity Plan?
All in 1 minute.
Loaded question.
Thank you. Thanks for that question. There was a lot there, right? But I think that they really all tie together for me under the topic of housing and how we can create more housing diversity in our community that supports our workers, that allows a more diverse range of people to live here. Right now, our housing prices are over $1 million to buy a home, right? That's unaffordable for a lot of people, which then limits our ability to kind of have thriving neighborhoods. So I would really like to see us focus on housing and inclusion as sort of a central component there. One of the things that I think we can do around diversity and inclusion is making sure that we are being inclusive on our council, on our city boards, and basically in any decision-making body that we have within our city. I was talking with somebody just before this that we really need to think about doing things like paying people for their work for the city rather than just having it volunteer-based, because volunteering is a privilege. It's not open to everyone, and we need all voices here. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. And next up, we have Lauren Folkert.
I agree with Nicole that these are great locations and opportunities for us to create really high levels of affordable and attainable housing. Currently in Boulder, we require new housing units when we develop a variety of them to have at least 25% of them be permanently affordable. And this sort of creates this creates a solution to one problem, but we need to look at gentle infill, duplexes, triplexes, townhomes, and co-housing, paired with land trusts and deed restrictions to create a variety of affordable housing options and a variety of ownership models for a diverse and vibrant community. And I think that would help address our comp plan goals, and we have great places to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. All right, next up, another one of our community partners, and it will be Sue Pran, Executive Director of Community Cycles. Oh, and I'm sorry, this question goes to Steve Rosenblum and Mark Wallach.
Hi. Cities such as Paris and New York have taken hold to reallocate street space for safe biking and rapid transit infrastructure. These steps have resulted in a sharp uptick in multimodal transit. Meanwhile, in the city's most recent report on transportation, which we provided you a link to, hopefully you were able to read that, reports that we keep missing milestone goals in our transportation master plan for reducing vehicle miles traveled and transportation greenhouse emissions. What bold steps would you promote as a member of City Council to move us towards achieving our transportation climate goals? How would you incentivize and support these outcomes?
Sure. So we're actually making great progress in terms of reducing vehicle miles traveled per capita for residents. More people are taking bikes, getting out of their cars. But we're being overwhelmed by increased vehicle miles traveled by our commuters. So we need to take bold steps. We subsidize RTD with EcoPass and the Fast Tracks tax that we passed. We're currently sending $9 million to RTD that we're not getting back, and the hope for someday we're going to get a train. So I'd open up the conversation. Can we take that $9 million and actually create mass transit that serves our needs to get our commuters into town without driving single occupancy vehicles? To address our residents, we need a north-south safe bike lane. We've got bike lanes all along the creeks going east-west, good recreational greenways, but I can't take my daughter downtown from North Boulder without worrying about her getting sideswiped by a car. So it's 10 years now, I would take another look at right-sizing some streets to create safe, convenient bike access for people to get where they want to go.
Thank you, Steve. All right, Mark, you're up.
During COVID, we have already reallocated a lot of street space on behalf of our restaurants, and that program has been wildly successful. We've been urged to continue it, and I support that continuation into 2022 and perhaps beyond. We have created great areas on the East Mall around 9th Street and 10th Street for that purpose, and I think, as I said, it's been wildly successful. With respect to vehicle miles traveled, I'm less concerned about the number of miles than the quality of the miles. We have to promote electrification of our private vehicles, install more charging stations, and reduce the impact of whatever vehicle miles are being traveled in that manner. Obviously, we want to promote a better bus system. I would like to see smaller buses running more frequently than large 40-foot buses with 2 passengers on them, and hopefully we can get that done sometime in the next few years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. All right, we have one more question from Community Cycles, and it will go to Jacques DeCallo and Dan Williams. Did you hear us, Dan? All right. So we'll have Jacques go first, and then Dan. Go ahead, Sue.
As RTD cuts its service throughout our region and within our community, we still have essential workers and residents that depend on transit daily during the pandemic and otherwise. How do we address these needs without relying on RTD to solve the problem? What are your top strategies for what we can do locally on our own to address transportation challenges? And please indicate how you would propose to fund those solutions.
That's a great question. I grew up taking RTD downtown to school, around to see my friends, so I was pretty reliant on it before I was old enough to get a car. But, you know, RTD hasn't been the most friendly, and we are allocating $9 million to them. I think we should look at what we're doing with that and take a note from our neighbor Golden, actually, who just introduced a autonomous shuttle fleet service that's completely environmentally friendly. It's an electronic bus that shuttles about 8 people. I think we could implement something like that, take the money from RTD and put it towards that. We could also get sponsorships from the large corporations that are in Boulder, such as Microsoft and Google, to help promote the autonomous driving, because that is a step of the future. It's going to be a huge thing in the next 5 to 10 years, and I think we need to advance that in the city, and it's very low cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacques. And I'm hearing that Dan's having a little trouble hearing, so we'll try to speak. Dan, just give us the thumbs up if you heard the question correctly.
Yep, I have the question. So, you know, it's an important question. RTD and the transit services we got from them really go to 2 core goals for the city. One is our climate goals, because we need to get cars off the road. We need to reduce vehicle miles traveled. And the second is our social equity goals. And, you know, Boulder needs to put its money where its mouth is when it comes to transit. And I think the reality is a lot of that's going to involve working with RTD, whether we like it or not. They are the partner here. But, you know, in Longmont, the buses are free right now. And that's because the city of Longmont pays for the buses to be free. For transit to work, it needs to be inexpensive, and the buses need to run frequently. And Boulder needs to work with RTD to make those 2 things happen. That's how we promote social equity in our city. That's how we get cars off the road and make the system work. I guess the third piece of it is if we have people living in closer proximity, if we allow more people to live in Boulder, that actually justifies having a transit system that more people can take. So thank you very much. It was a great question, Sue.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Well, the next 2, I think you know who you are, Tara Weiner and Michael Christie, and we are going to have one of our partners at the Human Services Alliance come up, Julie Van Domlen.
Hi, I'm with the Human Service Alliance, but I'm the executive director at EFA, the Emergency Family Assistance Association. Just a plug about the HSA. We are 50 plus nonprofit organizations in Boulder County in the human service area. That means we help people. So it's everything from the domestic violence shelters, housing for homeless families, food banks, immigrant services, health services, early childhood. It's a big gang. And I'm here with Greg Harms, who's going to introduce himself, and we're going to tag team our questions. So let me get to the first one. The Human Service Alliance's agencies provide the bulk of the community-based safety net in our community. And we've been critical in the COVID response. So my question is, how do you plan to continue supporting the safety net as we come out of COVID? And then in light of competing funding needs in the city, how would your priorities regarding human services funding compare to other city funding needs?
Okay, Michael.
So I think what we need to do is we need to look at what the fallout was from COVID and what lessons we learned from going through that pandemic. And don't, let there be no mistake. We are not through the COVID pandemic, and we will continue to struggle for probably a while to come. So I think when you look at what were the services that were provided by the Human Services Alliance, we need to make sure that we are dedicating our resources to those communities who are the most vulnerable and most in need. I know that right now we'll be getting about $20 million in ARPA funds to help support those services, and I would continue to support and work collaboratively with the Human Services Alliance to make sure that those funds are going to the people that are most in need of those services, and we need to continue to collaborate with HSA to make sure we're doing the best job that we possibly can. Thank you.
I think when it comes to this question, that the most important thing to me is probably eviction prevention and rental assistance. Because, a lot of people these past 2 years were barely making it, and it really sometimes doesn't take that much help for people to make it to the next paycheck. It really doesn't. So the wonderful thing is that ARPA funds came, and we already got half of the funds, half of the $20 million in July, and we're going to get the rest in the next year. And this is the opportunity of a lifetime, really, for us to use those funds to help those people. And once you have rental assistance and eviction protection, then that's a great way to fight homelessness, because I'm a housing first person, and I believe that that's really the way to go.
Thank you, Tara. Okay, that concludes the second round. So everybody take a deep breath. Thank you all audience members for sticking with us. We're gonna keep going with Greg. We're just gonna start over. So we're in our final round of questions, and we'll go to Lauren Folkert. No way. I can't. We're not trying to pit the ladies against each other here, but it's Nicole and Lauren again. We put them in randomly. Okay, and we'll move over to Greg Harms for the next question.
Great. Greg Harms from the Boulder Shelter for the Homeless. And like Julie, I'm representing the Human Service Alliance tonight. My question, many business sectors are grappling with the current labor shortage, including the human service sector. What is your role in addressing this labor shortage and livable wage concerns in a way that supports a diverse community of employees and residents?
That brings up a lot of great issues. So I think that a big portion of our workforce shortage has to do with affordable and attainable housing. We're going to continue to see difficulty hiring until people can live reasonably within our community. And I do think, I'm glad that you brought up wage requirements, because I think that that is sort of the other side, right, of affordable and attainable housing. The state law has changed, and we can now have a local minimum wage, and I think that that's something Boulder needs to be looking at. I know that we want to look at it as a county, but I think that Boulder should be pushing that discussion to happen quickly and for a wage that makes sense with our community. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. Thank you so much. I'm going to echo a lot of what Lauren said here. For me, a lot of this comes down to housing. This really is one of the most critical issues facing our community. Our population's declining. Half of our workforce is commuting into Boulder every day, and many of our residents are overly burdened by housing costs. This is why I support quick stopgap solutions like relaxing limits on home occupancy and ADUs. People are leaving our community, and all our businesses are struggling to recruit and retain workers. We need these fast-acting solutions to keep people in our community. In the longer term, I'd like to see more diversity in housing choices, like we have in some of our co-housing communities. I'd like people to have a corner store, cafe, within walking distance, and see children and families intermixed with retired folks and students and young professionals. Neighborhoods like these are going to build the strong social connections that we'll need with the climate emergency. Our 2015 Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan talked about the importance of housing pilot projects to help us find the right solutions. As a scientist, I'm a huge fan of pilot projects, so I would love to see some of those to try to get at these issues.
All right, thank you so much, Lauren and Nicole, and for being such good sports. That concludes our Human Services segment. We're gonna have Brett Sawyer come up from the Boulder-Longmont Area Realtors, BLAR. And this question goes to Jacques Takalo and Matt Benjamin.
Good evening. My name's Brett Sawyer. I'm a realtor. I'm the chairman of the Boulder-Longmont Association of Realtors. I also happen to be a Boulder native. Housing, obviously, is a key factor for all of our community partners here. So to elaborate on land use, what specific strategies, as opposed to general strategies, do you support regarding land use changes, housing and transportation policies and programs to address the needs of our current citizens and our current workforce?
Well, Brett, thank you for that question. You know, as has been said, and I'll say again, we have a housing crisis. And you got to give credit to the city. The city is doing quite well in leveraging dollars for our affordable housing. There are great state and federal ways to leverage those dollars, and Boulder Housing Partners does a really good job of that. But what we are seeing, though, is a lack of investment in that missing middle. Middle-income housing for young working families and other folks that don't really need affordable housing but need something a little more. And specifically with regards to land use, that is really the only tool we have to really support that missing middle. And to specifically answer the type of land use that I would like to see happen, it's worth having a little context. 85% of our housing is zoned residential. That means all the work we're doing in other forms of housing is with that other 15%. That's like squeezing juice out of a prune. And so what we need to do is start to liberate some of this single family zoning along transit corridors to allow duplexes and quadplexes and really start to give ourselves a little bit more capacity to help those young working families. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
I completely agree. We do need to work on zoning issues and reallocating land use for duplexes and triplexes. Also, we need to look at how we're including people in our community. You know, there are low-income houses that some people can't even qualify for. There are people who are coming into the city who, you know, want to be involved, want to be in the community, but they can't even qualify for low-income housing. So I think what we need to do is just kind of look at the board and look at who's really in control of that. You know, with the zoning. I'm studying here. Land use needs to be redistributed. We need to have more inclusive communities that have access to local coffee shops, local grocery markets. We need to kind of not isolate people, but bring them together off of, I guess, more community needs and really what the people who are looking for low-income housing need. That's what we have to look at.
Thank you, Matt and Jacques. All right, Brett's going to stay up for the next question, which goes to Tara Weiner and Mark Wallach. Okay, Mark, Councilman Wallach.
Councilman Wallach. It's obvious that we are having difficulty attracting workers into Boulder, both small business and larger businesses, because of the issues with regard to housing and transportation, creating additional housing units in our community. You've talked about some general strategies. What specific plans would you have working with city staff, working with your fellow council members to help rectify that dynamic to allow better housing and transportation opportunities to expand our workforce?
The biggest driver of housing cost is land cost. And what we need to do is take those land assets that are actually owned by the city, whether it's in the North Planning Reserve or our municipal airport, which is a hobbyist airport for 125 people, and convert those into housing. And because we own them, we can dictate what goes there, and it doesn't have to be 70% market to 30% affordable. It can be the other way around. Now, it will take years to convert the airport, but it is a project worth pursuing. It's 179 acres, and you could easily put 3,000 units on a property that size, and that's not even maxing out the density. And you can create diversity of housing types. You could take 20 acres of it and create a municipally owned manufactured home park. So there are potentials out there to actually move the needle in a dramatic way, and I urge us to do so with those assets.
When I think about what is going to attract workers here, I feel we cannot put all people in a box. There needs to be housing options. When you have a family, let's say in 3 kids, you're not going to fit into a little apartment of 1 or 2, and so you're going to choose to go and live in one of the towns close to here, like Louisville or Longmont. So I believe we need to really think about providing different types of housing for all people, and that includes seniors as well. Also, in terms of transportation, I believe we can think out of the box. I'm thinking about mobility hubs right now because let's face it, we talk about housing all night, but we're never going to have enough housing for all the people that want to live here. We're just not. So now we have to think outside of the box. If we're going to make it easy for people that work here to travel here, then let's have mobility hubs where people can put their bikes securely somewhere and buses outside of RTD. And also, how about van pools where different companies pick up their workers and take them to and fro? So I believe we can do it. We just have to think the big picture and get it done.
Thank you. All right, and thank you, Brett. Next, we'll have Ricardo Cabrera from the Longmont Chamber come up. I'm sorry, the Latino Chamber. I was looking at the Longmont Realtors. Thank you, Ricardo. And this question will go to Dan Williams and Michael Christie.
Okay, thank you for having me. Para todos los candidatos presentes, levanten la mano si hablan español. All right. That was not my question. That was a little bit of a test. So as you know, in the city of Boulder, about 9 to 10% is Hispanic, and 13 to 15% is minority. So with that, my first question to you guys is, what is your experience working with small, independently owned, diverse businesses, especially Latino businesses?
Good question, Michael. Why don't we start with you? And Dan, were you able to hear the question? We're going to start with Michael, but.
Yeah, no, I heard the question. I was wondering if you're ready. But okay, so it's an important question. Look, for much of my career, I have focused on issues of diversity, whether we're talking about the Latina community or African American community. That really has been a hallmark of my civil rights practice. It's been a hallmark of my legal practice. Last year after George Floyd was murdered, I led my law firm's effort to say, can we do more to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion in our community? And we did that with a 3-pronged strategy. First, we did the easy thing. We issued a public statement supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion. But then we've actually revamped how we're thinking about hiring to make sure that we were a firm that was actually hiring in a diverse way in addition to just talking the talk. And the last piece was we set up a series of forums on the history of racial exclusion in the city of Boulder to figure out why Boulder is the way it is in terms of its racial composition. We're still working on that today.
Thank you, Dan. All right, Michael.
So as I told you earlier, I'm a family law lawyer by trade, and I've been doing family law for almost 20 years now. And it's interesting how I fell into that category of law. So after leaving the JAG, I took a job with a law firm up in San Francisco, and it was not for me. So I started doing pro bono cases at the Bar Association. And I have extensive experience working with the Latino community, helping them through cases such as domestic violence and pretty horrible divorce cases. Working with these clients made me feel, I mean, you are looking at individuals who felt like they had nowhere to go, they had no help, and there was a communication gap. But in helping these clients work through these issues, particularly issues of abuse, I was able to feel like for myself as a lawyer, I finally found what I need to be doing. These people truly appreciated what I was doing for them. So it's that extensive experience in working with this Latino community with these domestic violence cases that I fell into doing family law because it filled my bucket. It made me feel like I was giving back to a community that really cared.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, Ricardo will ask one more question to Steve Rosenblum and David Takahashi.
Thank you. So my second question for you guys is, what are your specific strategies to support small businesses and nonprofits in Boulder through the COVID recovery, specifically Latino and minority-owned businesses?
I work for a minority-owned business. My Cuban wife, my Cuban grandmother, Cuban grandfather all run Hispanic-owned businesses. My specific strategy, so what do they care about? Access, opportunity, and a place at the table. So during COVID, we passed the CARES Act, trillions of dollars of stimulus, but it all got sucked up by the big businesses because the small businesses were so busy taking care of their employees, trying to make their rent check, they didn't know how to navigate the system. So we need the city to step up and guide our local businesses, and especially our Hispanic businesses, how to get that help. The other critical issue is workers. We have huge amount of backlog of unspent rental assistance while the eviction moratorium is about to expire. Boulder needs to step up and get our workers the help they need so that they're not evicted and they can pay their back rent so they can get back on the job.
Thank you.
Okay. The problem you are describing to me is a regional problem, and it would behoove us to take a regional approach. So we partner with state, partner with other municipalities, and try to come up with a encompassing solution that also brings in the disaffected so that we know what problem we're actually solving and bring it to a scale where we actually can have impact. That would be my answer for you.
All right, thank you, Ricardo. So we have one more issue question that we have time for. They've all answered 3 questions each. This last question will go to all of them. They will have 1 minute to answer. We have all the names back in the basket. We'll draw them at random. And so you know what order you're going to go in. The first one up is Matt Benjamin. And following Matt will be Nicole Speer. And let's just see if it's coming after that. Dan Williams. All right, so the question is about CU South, one of the key ballot issues that we'll be seeing on this fall's ballot. The question is, do you support the annexation of CU South property within the general framework that has been negotiated with the University of Colorado? How would you approach this issue if you were on council today, considering the pending ballot item that demands a much higher degree of planning and detail tied to the site and a public vote before the annexation is approved, along with their looming threat of litigation against the city if the annexation decision is made? So we'll go Matt, Nicole, and then Dan.
Well, I'm actually really glad that this is one of the questions we all get to answer because I think it's critically important. CU South and flood protection comes down to a really basic principle. Albeit the most complicated annexation agreement we've entered into, it actually comes down to a simple premise. Do you support saving lives? I do. So I fully support the annexation agreement as it is, And what's really important is that the city needs to continue to march forward with this work that has been going on for decades, and the negotiations between staff, city, and CU, and certainly council as a whole. What is really important is that we not get distracted with misinformation, and more importantly, focus on the community benefits that protecting these homes have. We're going to get critical housing when we need it. CU is going to be investing in that housing. We're actually getting proper height limits in areas to make sure sight lines are kept intact. But most importantly, we are protecting lives of vulnerable people. And with a climate crisis, this is one of the best investments we can make in our community for climate resiliency.
Thank you, Matt. All right, next up was Nicole Speer.
Thanks for this question. I'm going to say ditto to everything that Matt said. And then I'm also just going to elaborate a little bit on kind of the criteria that I generally would like to put in place anytime we're making a decision about developing on undeveloped land. And that's whether it's meeting high standards for community benefit. CU South is providing land for flood mitigation, affordable housing, and open space. Those are some of our top priorities in the city. So right there, it's meeting my standards for high community benefit. And I say this as someone who lives right next door to CU South. I could almost throw a stone and hit it. I am a CU employee, so that would affect my ability to kind of make some decisions right at the beginning. And while I have the opportunity as candidate, I really want to advocate for it because people's lives are at risk. I have friends who live in the Nest housing community. I have friends who live in Fraser Meadows. Those are the people that we're really prioritizing for, but we get so much in return. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. And next, we'll hear from Dan Williams. Following Dan will be Jacques DeCallo and Tara Wine. Go ahead, Dan.
Okay, yeah, no, thank you. So CU South, it's interesting, just stepping back, over 100 years ago, our city leaders looked and made a partnership with CU to build a flagship university, and it has defined our city for over a century. And the current CU South project is going to be viewed by future generations of Boulderites. And the question is this the right move forward for Boulder? It is. The plan, the annexation agreement as it exists now, will bring critical flood safety, and it will bring critical housing, both for students and additional affordable housing. And to boot, it adds open space. This is not just a project for the current council. The next council as well is going to have to work hard to get that flood control put in place and put in place quickly. And future generations are going to thank us for the work that we do, getting that flood control in place, because it's going to be needed because climate change is a reality.
Thank you very much, Dan. Next up is Jacques.
So I do support what the regions have put in place so far. I think it's huge that we have flood mitigation in case of another 100-year flood or 1,000-year flood, as climate change is constantly getting worse. Storms are going to keep getting worse, so that's important. Open space preservation is huge. That's one of the biggest appeals of Boulder, is all the beautiful nature that we have. Affordable housing is definitely very important, and the housing needs to be shared with students, with elderly, with diverse communities, and needs to be built in a sustainable way. I think that's something that we really need to advocate for, is the building materials. I worked with hempcrete, which is a sustainable building material that's thousands of years old. It's been eliminated because it hasn't been tested, but I helped a lady build a house in Washington with it, and I think it'd be a cool technology to bring to this development to show that Boulder actually does care about what we're doing on all fronts, not just the main fronts, but the underground and the construction and all of that stuff needs to be brought forward as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacques. Next up, we have Tara, and following Tara will be Lauren Folkert.
I totally for flood mitigation, and I just want to say that, rah-rah CU South, but I kind of agree with Julie Marshall when she wrote in the Daily Camera, where he said, wouldn't it be awesome if CU did not ask us to tie flood mitigation with annexation? That would be awesome, because there is so much back and forth and yelling at each other right now about this subject, so I hope they're all going to be careful to treat each other with respect about this issue. But I do stand flood mitigation, and I do stand for the annexation, I will say that. I think that it's awesome that we're getting to save some of our lands and and we're getting open space back, and we're getting plenty of acres of open space. That is a great thing. So I'm glad that CU has relented in the past couple of months, and Sam and Rachel have done a great job. I don't think it started out that great, but it became better and better, and so I really do appreciate that.
Thank you, Tara. Next is Lauren, and following Lauren will be Steve Rosenblum.
I would support the CU South annexation agreement. It is the result of more than a decade of smart people working really hard and pushing for a great solution for our community. It provides flood protection, affordable housing, student housing, and trail improvements. We get benefits in line with our comp plan values, and we cannot leave the vulnerable residents of our community unprotected. I'm strongly in favor of this agreement.
Thank you, Lauren. Steve Rosenblum, and then following Steve will be Michael Christie.
So public safety is the #1 priority and core concern of government. So that's what we should be working towards. We should have been working towards it yesterday. We're also going to get an amazing community benefit of lots of housing for our students. And CU has been underbuilding housing for their students for the past 20 years. So really negotiations have been going on in earnest for a couple of months. And I applaud Sam Weaver, who's in attendance, and Rachel Friend for getting us 90% of the way there. However, this is the biggest, most complex annexation that the city will ever take place. So I want to make sure it's done right. So I trust Sam and the rest of the council to get us there, but don't rush it. And in the meantime, so I've been in business for 20 years, and you don't enter into fair negotiation with a gun to someone's head. And that's what CU has been doing with the Fraser Meadows residents. So if CU is going to engage in good faith partners of the city, they should grant that immediate easement, so we should begin flood mitigation tomorrow.
Thank you, Steve. We have Michael Christie, and then we'll end this question with David Takahashi, and then Mark Wallach.
I am in full support of flood mitigation, and I applaud the efforts of Mayor Sam Weaver and Rachel Friend. I think they have done an excellent job to get us to where we are today. I also fully support the comments that Tara Weiner said about Julie Marshall's article on the camera. I do not feel like we should be held hostage when it comes to flood mitigation. The #1 priority of a governing body should be the safety of our citizens. And we have 2,300 people who are potentially in harm's way. It's not a matter of if, but when the next flood will come. With respect to the actual agreement, again, I've not seen the final agreement, and I recognize that it's easy for me to stand up here and be critical, but I would like to see some tighter language from a lawyer's perspective. I believe that paragraph 36B regarding de-annexation or deconnection needs to be mandatory, not discretionary at the hands of CU. And I also believe that paragraphs 39 and 40 of the agreement, the right of first offer and right of first refusal, there's no way the city can outbid a private developer with respect to this land. Thank you.
Okay, the public has signed a petition that has put making the decision on CU South a vote. And I believe that that is really appropriate. It is such a contentious issue that it could use some civil discourse and persuasion and bring out the best and bring it, let democracy work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all candidates. Okay, the final question. Oh, we have Mark, you haven't gone. I'm so sorry. Yeah, well, we already know. No. Come on up.
I am the only participant here who is going to vote on this matter and will be judged on the basis of that vote. If you accept the need for flood mitigation, which I do, there is really no alternative but to negotiate with CU for the best agreement possible for the city. I think our negotiating team has done that. I have tried to influence that process in ways that I can. and I have come to the conclusion that it is an agreement I can support. For that vote, some will applaud, some will excoriate me. I accept both. But I have looked at this, I have looked at the evidence with as much detail as I can. I have made the best judgment that I'm capable of making, and I have made that decision, and I will stand by it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. All right, now to our final question. And this time we're just going to go down the line in the order we introduced you, in alphabetical order. Means you're going again first, Matt, but I think you can handle it. Okay, your legacy. As a Boulder City Council member, what kind of legacy will you seek to leave?
All right, well, so that is a difficult question for someone who's not quite 40 years old to think about legacy, and I already have 2 young kids, so I'm more important about what they're going to eat for dinner tonight than a legacy. But I do think that what's important is if I were to try to say what could my time on council be measured by, it would be measured by, are we actually reaching our goals to be a more climate resilient community? Because at the end of the day, I think of my children and I think of what is it going to take for us to set them up for success? And that involves really being aggressive with our housing, our transportation, and really nailing how we think about our future generations. But I'll pick on one thing in particular that I would like to see happen in 2 or perhaps 4 years. I would like to see us change our election system to ranked choice voting. And the reason for that is because we are seeing a lot of divisiveness in this community, a lot of polarization, and a new voting method will disincentivize negative campaigning and polarization and bring us closer to a cooperative environment in which to legislate and help lead our community for the challenges we face in the future. Again, my name is Matt Benjamin, and I'm running for Boulder City Council.
My legacy. I would like to be remembered or known as someone on council that listened to people and that people felt that they could come to me and felt like they were being heard when they had a conversation with me. I would like to be remembered as someone who was pragmatic and reasonable and someone that was able to minimize the divisiveness that I see within our political community. I was not aware that Boulder was as polarized as it is, and I even see that happening in this election campaign. It needs to stop. We need to be working together. With respect to policies, one area that I think I would feel most proud in terms of my legacy would be if we could provide the services to the people in the encampments that they need so that we no longer have people sleeping on our creek path and in encampments. Thank you.
I'd like my legacy to be that I changed Boulder to be a carbon neutral city. I'd like my legacy to be that I was the one that accelerated our transition to sustainable energy. I pushed us past where we think we should be to where we actually need to be carbon negative or carbon neutral. I want Boulder to be a fun city that people recognize as different, as that we are extreme on our green platform, that we're extreme to provide for our citizens. I want us to be the extreme city because we are so smart, we're so capable, and we have the technology to do that. Thank you.
As you can see, the candidates up here largely agree on the issues our community faces. What separates us is our background and our ideas for how we solve these issues. We know that the number of people in Boulder cost-burdened and commuting into town is unsustainable. We need to address the affordable and attainable housing crisis and encourage a variety of housing types and a variety of ownership models. We need to address the climate crisis by following through on our goals in the updated Climate Action Plan. We need to ensure our community is safe and welcoming for all by bridging the gaps in social services and making sure the needs for all in our community are met. I hope you will visit my website and reach out to learn more. And small plug, Saturday I'm having a fun campaign event with biking and music. Follow me on social media to find out more. Thank you.
Results. The only measure of anyone's legacy should be results. Did we identify and prioritize the most important issues and put in place policies that effectively address them? Did we get there through processes that are inclusive, respectful, and strengthen relationships, even though we disagree? 5 of us will make up the majority of the new council. We all know we're living through a period of political acrimony throughout our society. Therefore, I am pledging to be transparent and to do my best to elevate our discourse and to denounce smear attacks, false accusations, and hit-and-run defamations against anyone in this community. I've already experienced it myself multiple times. This is wrong. This type of behavior will only take us down a negative path that doesn't serve our community and will accomplish nothing positive. I've done my research. Our problems are solvable. I humbly but strongly believe that with your support, I can play an active leadership role with others in addressing our problems and moving this amazing city into an even better future.
My vision is of a city where all of us can thrive, including the businesses that sustain us. It has walkable, bikeable, multi-generational, diverse neighborhoods with gathering spaces anchored by our businesses that strengthen our sense of belonging. People live where they work and have access to recreation, arts, and culture. The best workers in the world can't wait to live and work here. And because our businesses are successful, our whole community is successful. Our economy is bustling, even in the midst of the climate crisis. And thanks to smart investments in flood and fire mitigation, we're resilient when disasters strike. I've spent 16 years getting to know Boulder, and I know this future is possible because we have people like you to help us get there. Our community is ready to rise to the challenges before us, and I hope on November 2nd we elect a city council that can keep up. Thank you for your time tonight. Please pick up a flyer on your way out and visit my website to learn more, NicoleForBoulder.com. Good night.
Thank you all for coming. My legacy is 80 years down the road. About the turn of the century, I am hoping that the Boulder Council looks back and says, wow, the early 2020s was when it started to turn around. And we are so grateful for those that were looking out for us. That would be my legacy. Thank you.
I don't think that much in terms of legacy, although I do hope that a few years from now, my colleagues and I will be viewed as good stewards and will be viewed as having brought Boulder through perhaps the worst 2 years in living memory in a way that was smart, responsive to conditions, and left the community in a better place than we started. I think of City Council a little bit as Sisyphus. Every week we go into the meetings and we're trying to push a rock up a hill. And if we push that rock just a little bit, we've had a good day. So I hope at the end of my service on council, we will have pushed that rock as far as we can to meet as many of our goals as we can. And hopefully that rock will never roll back. And that we will have advanced the interests of all of the citizens of Boulder, and we will have made a positive impact on our community. My name is Mark Wallach. I'm running for re-election, and I hope I may have your support. Thank you so much.
And Tara, we'll jump to Dan.
All right, am I up?
You are.
All right, great. So I just want to start by thanking the Chamber and all the community partners for putting together this great forum. And, you know, it's 3 in the morning where I am now, so I guess I also want to thank my wife for bearing with us until the late hour. Look, you know, the question's about what legacy I would want to leave, but this isn't about my legacy. You know, this isn't about the legacy of anyone on this stage. This is about the city of Boulder. And this is about what kind of city we want to have moving forward. And do we want Boulder to be a place for all of us? That means the half of the city that's renters, as well as the half of the city who own their homes. That means the young entrepreneurs that we're currently pricing out of the cities, and so they can't be part of our community doing their creative work. That means communities of color that have been excluded from our political processes for far too long. I want to be on city council to make Boulder the happy, healthy, vibrant place that so many of us came here to live in a city like this. I'm Dan Williams. I hope to have your support for city council.
As I said in my opening, I'm a voice of reason. I'm a problem solver. And you know what? I don't like to just talk about problems. I actually like to solve them. I do that in business, but I also do that in my various experience with city governments on boards and commissions, where I've learned all about city processes. What I would like my legacy to be is, first, the safety and accessibility of Boulder Creek and our downtown. Then, securing federal and state funding to help solve our mental health crisis. I truly want to have that as my legacy. Restoring economic vitality and the arts to our businesses, especially during COVID recovery. Our many local businesses have been hit hard. Let's continue to support them. These are some of the things that are important to me. But you know what? I represent you, and I want to hear what is important to you. Do you know that it's the people of Boulder who came up with some of the best ideas? For instance, our open space. And so please, afterwards, come up to me and tell me what is important to you. I want to hear from all of you. Thanks so much. I'm Tara Weiner, running for City Council.
All right. You guys did it. Your first candidate forum. Thank you so much for being here, so much for running. And before we conclude the night, we're going to turn it over to our chamber president.
Okay, I'm going to be quick because this has been a long evening, but just incredibly important and impactful. So a lot of people to thank. First of all, please thank our Boulder Chamber staff team. I see Maya and Tyler in the back, Andrea, and now including Jill Granow. Thank them for putting this event together. It's a lot of work. We got to thank our partners who are partners in building our community through business, but they were partners in making this event as impactful and successful as it was. So thank you to all of you. And I want to make sure that I acknowledge all of you for paying attention. Why? Because your vote on these important candidates will guide the future of our community on the issues that were discussed tonight. So absolutely pay attention and make sure to vote. And then finally, but not least, they are lunatics. But they are incredibly impressive community leaders for just standing up here tonight and helping us to understand their passion, their solutions to these very difficult challenges, and for committing their time and energy to the future of our community. So from the bottom of my heart, I am thankful for the work that you've already done to put yourself into position to run for City Council, and I so look forward to following your candidacy throughout the campaign and looking forward to supporting all of you in your success on behalf of our community. So thank you so much. And then I ask the candidates if they can hang around. We're going to take a group photo. All right. Have a good night, everybody.